all your school rugby, all in one place. This is NextGenXV.
Alright guys, welcome to NextGen15, and as the title suggests, today we are going to be looking at the Under 20 tournament that recently just took place. So if you're new to our channel, please don't forget to click that subscribe button as well as bell notification, and as soon as new videos are released you'll be the first to know. So let's get into the video. So the South African Under 20 Cup is done and dusted. Firstly, well done to the Bulls, who are the 2022 champions, and well deserved, I must say. So today, I'm going to give some thoughts on the tournament, improvements I could see happening, and of course a team of the tournament, which is obviously why most of you are here, as usual. Now, I relied heavily on those in the know and some of those guys that attended the games for this list, so healthy debate, always welcome, but I wasn't able to see a lot of the games. I was able to see a couple of highlights here and there, but I'm definitely relying on people that were at the games and some people that have been part of the coaching staff and all the rest of that. So I also collected all stats for the tournament. It's available on our website. Just head over to nextgenxv.com, nextgen15.com, take a look in the right hand column, and you'll see SARU Under 20 tournament. Every single stat is there. Every single person who scored a try, who scored a point, who played, everything is over there. But first, let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly of the tournament. So we start off with the good. It was just great seeing the youngsters back in action. I mean, of course, you just got to think about how long these boys went without rugby, and this generation specifically never had, a matric first team year. It's, very sad, very talented generation here. And the same age group won't have an Under 20 World Cup, so they obviously gave it the all in this tournament. I mean, it's only going to take place next year, and I really feel this year's group is extremely strong and could have gone all the way. Obviously, there's enterprising and open rugby played. It just showed by the scores. I mean, they threw caution to the wind. There was a lot of high-scoring games, a lot of tries scored during the tournament, and it's obvious that the players were really able to sort of express themselves. In terms of the bad, obviously, guys, where was the coverage? I mean, there was almost zero coverage on this tournament. And I mean, you must remember, many fans have been following the players from a young age, and only the final was really streamed. There is hunger out there for this competition. I've spoken to a lot of people, but the coverage is non-existent. It's really something SARU has to really improve upon, is giving more coverage to these tournaments and more exposure to the youngsters. But I suspect that super sports schools will change this. One can only hope. Then the ugly, and yeah, that is ugly. So the ugly, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room? Excuse the pun, or pun intended. I mean, what was the point of really having EP in the competition, guys? And the thing is, if you're going to have them in the tournament, provide them with financial support at least to recruit the right quality of player. So look, I'm from the Eastern Cape. I don't want to belittle the union, but please, just explain to me how development is aided with cricket scores. I just don't see it. And I mean, the guys gave an F, they're all on the field, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, when you're playing against unions that are stacked with SA schools players and, SA Under 20 players, and you've got limited resources and limited access to quality coaching and facilities, I mean, I just don't see the point, really, to be honest with you. In my opinion, there has to be a solution to this madness. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, if you'll be patient with me. So we just got to look at the current problems with the system, so to speak. So there just aren't enough competitive teams. And if this is about youth development and pathways, I just don't see how this offers players any sort of value in terms of development. If you think about the larger unions, they control the talent. I mean, if you take a look at the Bulls, I mean, at 8th man, they've Abu and Bambi, Willie Porgette, Cameron Hannekom, Harders Rothman, Niels Volschenk, just to name a bit of few. I mean, why warm the bench? They should be playing against each other. I don't have a grudge against the Bulls, guys. I'm not criticizing the Bulls. It's perfectly natural that they would act in this manner. If the talent wants to come to them and the talent is available and the budget is there, by all means, take the players. I mean, the unions are just acting within their self-interest, and that's completely understandable. So I'm not criticizing the Bulls. I'm just saying the system at large is a little bit broken. I mean, if you take a look at the smaller union budget, if there's no budget to acquire talent, then what is the point of being in the competition? This whole business of making up the numbers just simply adds zero value to the competition. It's also not commercially viable. Schools rugby works because there's a supporter base. You don't have major crowds at these games, and yet some of these youngsters are on lucrative contracts. So if it's not commercially sustainable, then long term we are going to run into problems, guys. We are going to run into problems. The model needs to be fixed, in my opinion. So I don't believe the solution is at the union level. I think what we need to look at, what can sort of make us great again, to borrow a phrase from somebody, what I'm talking about. And I think that's sort of bringing up the club game. So if you take a look at it, I would sort of propose something that you go from school level to the under 21 club league, which I'll be talking about now, then the senior union and the franchise. I honestly think that it devalues the jersey in a way that if you play under 19, under 20, and under 21, you can put on a Bulls jersey. In my opinion, a Bulls jersey should be like the next step in your career. Not after school, but it should be in phases, right? So I think it should be something that you really have to fight to put on that Blue Bulls jersey, and it's going to be an absolute honor when you put it on. It's the same as someone putting on the Springbok jersey. Once that jersey goes on, you've done the work. And I'm not saying the youngsters that put on the jersey haven't done the work, but when you've got 50, 60, 70 youngsters all wearing that Bulls jersey, doesn't it devalue the jersey a little bit? I don't know, call me crazy, call me old-fashioned or whatever, but I really think that there should be a lot more to do to actually wear your union or your franchise's jersey. So if you take a look at the pathway, if you go through the under 21 club league system, for example, you put on that Bulls jersey for the Currie Cup, you've worked. I mean, you've worked very, very hard to get there. And I'm not saying the guys aren't working right now, but imagine that feeling of your first time putting on a Bulls jersey, that blue jersey, what an honor it would be. I mean, I don't know. Again, guys, this is just opinion-based. Let me know what you think in the comments. So, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, the union pathway is an outdated model and doesn't serve the union itself or the franchise. And that's what we should be doing, is serving the unions and the franchises, right? So the reality is that youngsters are attracted to certain regions. I mean, why would a youngster want to head anywhere else besides big urban centers or varsity towns? I mean, as soon as you leave school and you're from some rural area, you don't want to go to another rural area. You dream of Cape Town, you dream of Joburg, Pretoria, Stellenbosch, whatever it is. You dream of the big city lights. Let's be straight there. So what if we had to create a national under 21 club competition, and maybe that will solve the problem? So I would sort of propose something with 2 divisions, each with 10 teams, and it would look a little something like this, right? So you'd have an inland division, a coastal division. Basically, your larger unions would be more represented, obviously, but you'd obviously, again, guys, this is just an example before you get your knickers in a knot. I'm just basically brainstorming some ideas here, and I don't work for any major union or anything like that, so I don't know the viability of it. But let's say the Bulls, for example, have Tuks, Quins, Bobbies, and Centurion as their clubs, their under 21 clubs, under 21 league. Then, for example, the Lions have UJ, Wits, and Pirates. So a lot of the guys that maybe don't qualify for university, for example, could go to Pirates or Centurion, Quinn, Bobbies, and the guys that qualified for varsity can go to Tuks, UJ, etc., and the same for the coastal division. So this just gives you a rough idea of what I'd see it looking like. And guys, look at this. I mean, this is absolutely insane. And this just shows you how much talent there is at the Bulls right now. If the Bulls had to have 3 teams, look at this. All 3 of these teams would compete against the best in the country. Let's be honest. I mean, they'd compete against a union themselves. And I think the same can be said to an extent for the Sharks, the Lions, and Western Province perhaps as well. And I mean, if these teams play against each other, this is far more competitive than playing against, Eastern Province, for example, or the Falcons or whatever, depending on who's in the competition. The names don't matter, but the concept matters. I mean, like, do yourself a favor, because I'm going to move onto the next slide, but just take a look at the quality. And I'm still missing players here, guys. There's still 10, 15, 20 players that can make up the reserve bench that are high-quality players. If these guys had to play, I'm watching this. I don't know about you, but I'm watching this. I think this will be entertaining as hell. So, My thing would be that the unions can sign the players and assign them to clubs. So you could basically say, like, a youngster signs for the Bulls, and then you can say, right, at Centurion, for example, we see a pathway over there for you as an eighth man, so we pop you over there. So the director of youth rugby can basically assign players to the various clubs. So, I mean, I think each team can play 1 or 2 rounds depending on the season, maybe just 1 round. And then the top of the league table for the inland and coastal cups or leagues, they challenge each other in the grand final, and that's a curtain raiser to the Currie Cup. Let's add some more spice to it. So the unions can ultimately have their cake and eat it. I think it's great for player development as well. And it also increases the quality in terms of the competition. I mean, just take a look at that last slide in terms of the Bulls. I mean, the Western Province, you could do something similar. Sharks, you could do something similar. I mean, these unions have a lot of depth. So what is the point of not trying to do something like this? And also what I like is that, there'll be local support from the clubs and the university, members or students. I think it could become a financially viable product in the long term. Like if Tuks under 21 are playing against Centurion under 21, for example, or UJ under 21, if the game's live streamed, it's at the varsity, you make a day of it. I mean, you take a look at the crowds at the Varsity Cup, you've got a built-in supporter base. This is much better than playing. I mean, if you take a look at that final, you're playing the final at Loftus Versfeld. There's a capacity 50, 60,000 people there. How many people are in the stadium for that game? 100? I just think this is far more viable commercially in the long term as well. And I think it would just be a very interesting competition. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section down below. And, do you think something like this could work, or do you think the current structure itself works? I mean, there is a point to be made that, bringing in all these players into one union, they compete against each other and competition will bring out the best. But how do we know unless we see the guys playing on the field? We just don't know. So I'm just trying to operate in like some sort of outside the box thinking. I love youth rugby. I love South African rugby. All I want to see is the youngsters get a chance to prove themselves and a chance to, have some competitive games, because, I mean, a lot of these games, guys, some of them were just absolute cricket scores. And, I mean, even if I take a look at the Varsity Cup this year, it sprung quite a few surprises because of the dynamic nature of the competition and the change. And that's what I like about age group rugby as well, is that, you've got 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is, and then the next generation comes through. To me, that's what makes it interesting. That's what gives it such a dynamic approach. And I think something like this would really work. But again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But the reason why you're all here, team of the tournament. So starting off at fullback, Franco Knutzer from the Bulls, obvious choice over here. Franco's still, to me, one of the most outstanding playmakers we have in the nation. The guy's spatial awareness, again, I've spoken about it time and time again, is amazing. I really think he's improved for his goal kicking as well. His positioning as a fullback is just brilliant. I think he's found his home over there. Long may it continue. Moving on to wing, Pashal Keji from Western Province. There should be absolutely no surprise here. Keji's an absolute beast. Try scoring machine. I'm very surprised that he wasn't part of the under 20 camp. I don't know if it's a passport issue or whatever, but I just rate this guy, and I've always rated him very highly. You guys know that, spoken about him for many years. So very, very happy for him. He's a great youngster and a really hard worker. Guys, I forgot to mention a caveat. To make this sort of squad, you basically need to have at least played at least half of the games. I know there's some players that had some exceptional performances and all the rest of it, but they were bouncing between sort of Currie Cup and URC and the under 20 competition. So I'm looking for guys that are consistently playing, obviously. Okay, so moving on to outside centre, Nabo Sequoia for the Bulls. No surprise here, really. Now, it's quite funny because a long time ago, well, what feels like a long time ago, I met with his agency, and they actually said that one of the guys there said they really like him at centre, and I said, no, man, this guy's a born outside back. He surprised everybody, I think, that thought he was an out-and-out outside back with his performances this year. Form centre in the competition, absolutely great leader, vice captain, I think, for a lot of the games as well. So Nabu is definitely finding his feet at centre. Long may it continue. We know about his running lines, his speed and his vision. Great young player. Then inside centre, Brandon Wilkie from the Sharks. I mean, this guy's been a prodigy at school since schoolboy level. You know, as a youngster, every school in the country was offering him a bursary. He stayed at Framsby. Unfortunately, like everyone else, he didn't have his first team year as a matric. But outstanding player, part of the SA under 20 mix last year already as well for the training camp. Just an all-round great player, very versatile as well, very comfortable at fly-off, very comfortable at centre, and is a bit of a point-scoring machine when he feels, when he's in the mood. Then we move on to the next wing, and it's obvious, Kewen or Keir from the Bulls, one of the leading try scorers in the competition as well. Very happy for Kewen. I thought he had a couple of difficult outings with Uffies at the beginning of last season. Obviously, there wasn't a full season for him. Still needed to find his feet a little bit, get a bit of form. But now that he's basically had a full season behind him, he's just shown his quality, and he's just shown why everybody rates him so highly. Great tournament by him. One of the key players for the Bulls in their victory in this tournament. Fly-off, again, another obvious one, Sasha Mngomozulu from Western Province, leading point scorer in the competition by some distance. I have to give a shout out to John Smith from the Sharks as well. I thought he played absolutely outstanding rugby, but Sasha was just obviously, as always, I mean, he's the leading fly-off in his age group by some distance. Very special player, point scoring machine, consistent performer for Western Province. I loved what I saw of him even in this last game. I know that there was one or two mistakes, but these are things are to be expected in a final, especially when your scrums continually on the back foot. But I thought he acquitted himself pretty well, and I still like I said to you guys before, that whole risk-taking part that he's got, those risks are starting to come off, learning his lessons, knowing where to kick. He's got an outstanding feel for the game, and in terms of positioning and all the rest of it, I think he's developed very, very nicely. Definitely ready for the next stage of his career, which is going to be senior rugby, obviously. Moving on to scrum off, JD Willowfear from the Cheetahs. One of the shining lights of the smaller unions, one of the leading point scorers in the competition as well. I was very surprised that he never signed for a major union, that he chose to stay at the Cheetahs, but obviously feels very at home over there and playing some outstanding rugby. I still rated him very highly as a school player, great all-round sportsman, great leadership ability, very, very high rugby IQ. Does everything very nicely, very nicely. Crisp passing, great kicking game, sniping runs around the rucks. He's got it all. Looking forward to seeing how he develops further in the future. And another player I think is definitely ready for the next stage. Then moving on to 8th man, Armand Maritz from Western Province. A consistent performer in the competition, one of the key players in Western Province. They did beat the Bulls during the round robin stage, and Armand was obviously one of the outstanding players for Western Province this year. Big ball carrying player, very, very hard worker, solid leader. Team really believes in him, gets behind him, and he deserves his place in the training squad for the under-20s as well. So let's see how he gets on. Then we go into blindside, Eric Besson from the Bulls. No surprise here. Captain Fantastic, lifted the trophy. I would have loved to have seen him at school level. I mean, it was such a pity we missed out on that pole gym of 2020. You had him and Lonell and Kraus. Arguably, that could have been the loose four trio, and that would have been a monster loose four trio. But yeah, he's carried on his school form into his senior career. So don't be surprised if you don't see him take the next step up as well. Then open side, we went with Josh van Verden from the Lions. Captain Fantastic over there. Boy from the Eastern Cape. So perhaps there could be some bias in there. But honestly, guys, strokes aside, the Lions were by far the form team in the competition at the beginning. They fell off a little bit in terms of their form. But if there was one consistent performer, it was Josh. Played his heart out. I'm very disappointed I didn't see him included in the under-20 squad. I think he's a fantastic young talent, and knowing him, I think that these sort of challenges are just going to build his character even more, and he's got character in spades, which is why he's obviously made our team. Then Locke, Henny Sibahagen from Western Province. How funny it was that last year he wasn't 100% sure if he's going to get a contract or not. Now he's starring for Western Province, made the final. Had a hell of a game, had a hell of a tournament, called up to the SA Under-20 training squad as an Under-19. Future's looking very, very bright for Henny, and he deserves it because he is an extremely hard-working young player and very humble. So happy for him, and let's hope that form continues. Then other lock, we have Merve Olafia from the Bulls. No surprise here, guys. So happy for him. He made the SA Under-20 squad. If there's anyone that deserves it, it's him. To think that a couple of years back he was playing at Brandewag, he was known as a hard man over there, hard rugby player, then obviously went over to Grey College. Then the situation happened, so not a lot of rugby was able to be played. But the rugby that we did see him play, he was an absolute physical presence and plays the game with a controlled aggression, very good sportsman. You're not a dirty player. I sort of see him as becoming like a clean Bucky's Water enforcer in the future. Long may his form continue. Great young player, and more than deserves his spot. And I definitely hope to see him wear that SA Under-20 jersey because I know how much it would mean to him. Then Tated Corne Valbach from Western Province. It goes without saying that the Western Province scrum really struggled when he was missing. Throughout the tournament, Western Province have had a very dominant scrum. I did obviously manage to catch quite a few of the highlights and all the rest of it. Some of the clips that were sent to me. We talked about him at length last year. Was the standout prop for South Africa. Kept our scrum in check when we were struggling against the Georgians and the Argentinians. And Western Province really missed him in the final, guys. I think he could have been he would have made a big difference in that final, personally speaking. And, can't wait to see him pull on that South Africa Under-20 jersey again. Who knows who's coming to tour here, but whoever is coming to tour here, beware of this Tartet threat over here. He's going to do some real damage. Hooker, no surprise. Tion Lange has come on in spades as a player. He was always a very, very, very talented school player. Could play at number 6. He could play at hooker. Loved the physical side of the game. He didn't care who came to him. He loved the physical confrontation, the battle. He's taken that aggression, he's honed it, and he's become something else. I think by far the leading hooker in his age group right now, at Under-20 level, has to be a starter for the South African Under-20 team, guys. Leading try scorer in the competition. Think about that. Gone are the days when Wings used to score the tries. Now it's the hooker's job. And Tion is... what the Afrikaners call an eister. He's a hard man, and I'm very, very happy for him because Menlo Park weren't exactly like a massive powerhouse school in terms of their rugby, but he really stood out, and to see him play in a team that suits his same level, he's just shining. He is just absolutely shining, and he's turning into the player that he always had the potential to be. And remember something as well, the Bulls have a lot of depth and a lot of competition in the hooker position. So definitely challenges waiting in the wings, and I think that obviously has brought the best out of him. So he's one of those players that has developed very nicely. Then Lucid, Jean Als from the Bulls. And this guy is just something else. I'll never forget the first time I saw him play as a grade 11. I was expecting a different Grey College prop at Loosehead, and when I saw this blonde kid run into the field who didn't look like the biggest youngster I've ever seen in my life, I thought to myself, what is going on here? That doesn't look like a prop. That looks like a center. Then he proceeded to bulldoze his opposition to Hallenback. Quality in the scrum. But it's not only the scrum. He's an absolute menace at the breakdown. He just makes an absolute nuisance of himself at the breakdown. Such a strong player, such a great character. Under 19, and his form in this competition has led him to be called up to the SA Under-20 squad. And you just got to think him and Blokkies Lavanya, both in the SA Under-20 squad, both at the Bulls, both loose head props. These two guys are going to go on a long journey together, and I'm very excited to see it. Anyway, guys, let me know in the comment section what you guys think about the proposal for a different kind of tournament, what you think of the dream team, so to speak, any changes that you'd make. And obviously, thank you for taking the time to watch a video and staying with me for this long. I know some of these can be a bit long. But as always, have a fantastic week further. Cheers. Bye.